Tell me. Yep. All right, everybody, we're on. Just give us a couple of minutes to get started up here, okay? Go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. I got to get Reed up here. Apparently, we got our wires crossed. Hey, Uncle, how you doing? Give me a minute, you guys, and go ahead and visit while I get Reed up here on the panel. I'm gonna send you another email link, Reed. So hold on a second, bud. Look in your email. I'll be sending it out. Let's see. Here you are, right there. Okay, it's coming over there. Just a second. I just shot it over there to you, Reed. All right. Well, he is getting that link. Hold on, you guys. I'm gonna be changing some stuff here. We're gonna talk tonight about big events. Not only big events, but we're gonna be talking about the everyday small events that happen every day. You know, things like ice storms or blizzards or power outages, and how that we could deal with that. You know, so give us just a couple more minutes. We'll be getting started. Did you get it? Did you get it this time, Reed? Hey, Gay, how are you doing tonight? Carson Needham, welcome. I'm going to do a roll call here while we're waiting.
Yep, I got it.
You're in?
Hey, Reed.
I sent it to a bunch of people. I hope everybody didn't get mixed up. How are you doing this evening, sir?
It's been a crazy day.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just sitting here talking while we were waiting on you to get in here. Hey, I'm going to do a quick roll call, you guys, and we'll get going. I've got Ryan the Gamer. I've got Wasted and Prepping. I've got Alana's in here. Finally, we got Reed here. Wasted and Prepping. Uncle Al. Brother in the Wild. Lana. Gay from Gotta Love Carpet Pythons. How you doing, my friend? Old man, hey, how you doing? I got popsicles, buddy. Insight, Freedom. Uncle Al. Let's see. Looks like I have Prosh 12. I hope I got that right. Is that right? Prosh? Prosh? If I missed anybody, make sure that you light up that comment bar below so I can get your channel called out. I like to make sure everybody knows that you're here. It looks like I must have done okay. Is that right? Proche? Proche. Oh, there we go. We got Carson Needham too. I forgot that guy. All right, you guys. Welcome everybody for being here. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about local events. You know, things like blizzards or ice storms or power outages, and how you can deal with them and how you can get your community involved in it. And while you guys start this off, I'm going to make sure that email got out, Reed. So if you'll just lead it off for me while I get in my mailbox.
Okay, I can start there.
Yeah, because I'm going to make sure that email got out.
Hi, Dan.
Howdy, howdy.
Dan got it.
Yep, I'm just helping getting kids put down to bed, so I'll be off video, but I'll be on mic for a little bit.
All right, go ahead and lead off there, Reed, please.
Okay, so today we want to talk about something just very everyday. We love talking about the end of the world, zombie apocalypse, the golden horde, but a lot of prepping is just about regular everyday disasters. And so I sent an email to Will and said, hey, let's talk about like a giant blizzard comes into the area with an ice storm, knocks out power. There's so many people trying to, run their furnaces and all that. Natural gas is short. And because everyone's overwhelmed and the whole state's just flooded, or a couple states in the area, you're probably not going to have power in your area for, say, 2 weeks. What do you do? How do you help your neighbors? How do you do lights? How do we deal with medical issues? How do we heat our home and not kill ourselves with carbon monoxide? That sort of discussion. That's what we wanted to talk about tonight. All right. So I had some quick, simple props I actually bothered with today. So one of the things that I ran into, because we actually had a horrific deep freeze down here in my desert once. I mean, it was minus 20 at night and only got to minus 5 in the day. It was a pretty big shocker. The plumbing stores were cleaned out, let me tell you. But I often thought is, if you have to repair your plumbing, you got to do something real quick right now, something to do. What's the good way to do it? Cover copper, PVC, and some other stuff. Well, I ended up finding this. It is a silicone self-adhesive tape, and it's called Extreme Tape. It was actually invented, I guess, for the military because they wanted something that was really useful. And it binds to itself and makes a permanent bond. And you can actually wrap it around a piece of pipe that's leaky, not like, the whole thing's broken apart in 2 halves and you join it back together. That won't work. But if you got a crack down it, you can actually, like on PVC and stuff, you can actually seal back up with this and it will hold for a while. So if you had to get some plumbing repaired that way, you can get started that. It's called Extreme Tape, and they spelled it, X-Dream. And you can find it on Amazon and all sorts of other places. It also works for all stuff, and it's even UL listed for electrical stuff. I like it for wiring stuff up because it makes that permanent bond. Unlike electrical tape, sometimes when it gets real hot, it just comes apart in a goo. So I like that one. Another silly prop idea I had for the night was, if you had, tons of people have these, yard lights everywhere, solar yard lights. And I thought, well, if the power's out, you could go get them off of your lawn and at least set them in your house so you've got some, night lights and you're not tripping over everything. So you can see how to get to, the bathroom or other places around the house. And you just set them out in the day and then bring them in at night. I thought it was a decent idea for some emergency lighting if you were scrounging up stuff. Now, one of the things, though, I really like is these kind of ventless heaters and stuff. They use propane and things. After we had one of those shortages, I went and got a bunch of those. And so I make certain to, I've used them a lot at my house, actually. I like them a lot. And so we've had other outages and power problems. Power's out and everything else. But I can still heat my house just fine off my propane ventless heaters. So those are my comments, thoughts for the day. Feel free to jump in and say how crazy I am.
All right. I got somebody trying. You make it in, Alana?
How crazy I am.
Yeah.
Hey, look there. She did it. Yay. Hi.
Hey, Reed.
I had to turn it on my other thing so I could see the chat because the chat doesn't show on my phone.
Yeah, you can get it on your phone if you're on your computer.
Yeah.
You just have to go to the live chat.
There was a question about where to buy that first thing that you was talking about. There was a question in the chat of where to buy that.
Oh, the Extreme Tape? You can just get it on Amazon. Just go to Amazon XTREME tape, and it pops up real fast. They got different colors. black, red, white, blue, all sorts of stuff.
Is that
Different
like
widths.
is that like heat tape then?
No, it doesn't need any heat. Literally, you just stick it together, and it self bonds to itself, and it's like this.
Oh, yeah,
It's really neat. It's
that before.
really neat stuff.
Show
really
it to me again.
impressive.
I was busy. You got another picture of it?
Yeah, so like here's the tape itself.
Uh-huh.
Here's a new roll. And then here, let me get the label out. And get it up close.
Extreme tape. So that's something like electrical tape?
Well, it works on all sorts of stuff. It works on electrical stuff, plumbing repairs. I mean, pretty much anything you want to use it on. It's a really neat tape. It's also UV resistant. I've used it to tie wires up around solar panels, and it hasn't cracked and come apart, which is pretty darn amazing out here.
Well, that's pretty good. Heat tape works
Yeah.
good too if you put it around your pipes and stuff.
Oh yeah, I actually, it's funny. It's under my house. There used to be heat tape because I'm actually in a manufactured home, and they usually run that stuff, and then you put heat tape around the pipe and stuff. However, some pesky squirrels got under there and chewed up the wires, and it like melted pipe. And I was worried I was getting. So I was like, this is a fire hazard. So I actually dug a 3-foot deep trench all around and reran the entire plumbing, so I don't use any heat tape anymore.
Oh, okay. It's always better to have it buried if you can. You can put heat tape actually right in the ground when you do that, though.
Really?
I used to do underground utilities when I was a much younger person, of course. But we used to do a lot of modular homes and trailer houses and stuff. And I've run a lot of piping and stuff underneath of them. And we used to run the water pipe. We just dig like a 12-inch little trench with a shovel, and we just lay it right in the ground. Then we just string that heat tape right alongside of it, and then just put like newspapers or something on top of that, and then bury it. And then eventually the paper dissolves, from the water and on the ground and all that. But it stays long enough for everything to bind around the pipe and stuff. And that's a pretty good trick. I learned that from my boss. And it's not exactly code, but it works really well.
There's lots of stuff that's not exactly code that works pretty well.
Hey, D-Mac, say something so we can see the baby.
I want to see the baby.
I'm wondering.
Okay, I'll start talking. Yeah, I'm letting you guys hear, so I'll go ahead and start chiming in so everybody can.
That's D-Mac's baby?
Yep, that's my little one right there.
That's
so
cool.
here's the other little one right there. So he's not quite as little as this little one is. So
yeah, I like babies better than walker and talkers.
Yeah, this is the one that everybody wants to look at right now. So I'll show her off for just a little bit there. So
she's tired.
That's right. It's like she's ready to wake up and start crying. Right. Hi, little Missy. Look, say hi to the world. Say hello.
Oh, she's waving at everybody.
That's right. Say hello.
Yeah, she's saying F you, Dad.
That's exactly what we said right there. So cool. Yeah, I figured I'd give her a little cameo for you guys real quick. So
thanks, I appreciate that. Let's see. That mail must have gone through because you're here, Dan. So that's a pretty good deal. You got anything to add in, Dan? Well, we got you on the link.
Absolutely. I've got plenty to talk about.
I know you do. You always do.
I've always got plenty to say, but I've lived in a wintry climate for the last decade or so. So I've dealt with blizzards and with shoveling the driveway, and I've dealt with that for a while now. So we have to be pretty regular. That's the thing that's the random act of God that I prepare for regularly in my area. Not necessarily hurricanes because I'm in the middle of the country, don't have to worry about that so much. I don't have to worry I focus on blizzards, on forest fires, and on earthquakes because that's the realistic natural disaster that's going to last and hit my area. Blizzards are an interesting one because it can shut down the power pretty quickly, and it can, you can freeze pipes pretty, like you can definitely have a quick loss in infrastructure because of a blizzard. So you're going to want to be prepared for power, for water, because those are going to be the three main, and shelter, obviously. Those are going to be the three main things that you're going to lose if you're dealing with, freezing rain where it's putting a lot of weight on the power lines, causing the power lines to then collapse and go out, which will cause, a lot of blackout type of things in the areas. You're definitely going to want to have stuff like what Reed was showing you right there, the propane. But you're also going to want to like those are super dangerous. Like the second that everybody starts running propane heaters in their house and fires in their house is when you're going to have to like really be prepared for fire hazard as well. Because a lot of people are going to be burning down their houses when it's freezing outside and they're trying to heat the place because they're not going to heat their houses appropriately, or they're going to get too close to that open heat source right there. So you're going to want to make sure that you are around each of your heaters that you're using, that you do have a fire extinguisher or fire suppression methods right there so that you can quickly suppress a fire if you were to have something like that flare up because of a knocked over candle or something like that. But one thing to think about when you are in a cold climate and when it is freezing outside is that you really want to focus on kind of like central or spot heating certain areas. You don't want to. You're not going to be able to heat your whole. So instead of focusing on heating your whole house, you're going to want to focus on heating just one room. So you're going to want to take that one room and you're going to want to put blankets up over the windows and staple those up so that you can insulate the windows as much as possible. You're going to want to close off any of the vents that you have so that you can close off airflow in the certain rooms right there. And at that point, once you have one room that's well insulated and kind of blocked off from the rest of the house, you're going to have 3 or 4 people sleep in that room with you to provide body heat. But simply a candle alone, 1 or 2 candles burning in that room with 2 or 3 people sleeping in it is going to maintain enough heat to where you guys are going to be able to stay above freezing in there to a degree. Obviously, depends on the size of the room and the number of people, but you'd be amazed at what candles will do if you're in a contained room, a small, draft controlled environment right there. That's something that we focus on, that I keep in the wife's car and in my car in case we were ever trapped in a snowstorm. Crack one of the windows and then light the candle inside your car, and that candle is going to provide you enough heat to not freeze to death. So you want to focus on that. You're going to want to have winter jackets. You're going to want to have down, natural fibered stuff because that it works better than synthetics. And then I was a little bit crazy. I actually had a wood burning stove plumbed into the basement of the house. I had it sitting right next to my hot water heater, so that if I needed to, I had a wood burning plumbed into the house there, so that I could heat the house with my little stove right here. I actually pulled it out, but I could heat the house with this if in the basement. Had a chimney going up, and just the chimney pipe alone, it would heat to a couple of the strategic things there, so that you could add heat certain areas of the house easy enough. So.
I have
you've gone all robot.
Here. Yeah, have a comment out there on the live chat that's saying Camp Patton family. They have actually said that when their pipes froze, they replaced all the copper lines with PEX pipe, and they said that they have better luck with that because it flexes and won't split like copper or PVC.
Well, PEX has a bit of freeze tolerance. I mean, I have PEX myself, and it can freeze a little bit and handle it. But if you get the whole line to freeze, it's too much and it will split open. So we can take a little bit of freeze, but not a huge ton of freeze.
I suppose it would be the area that you're living in. It would depend on the area.
Every plumbing system is going to have its weakness. Like also the issue with PEX though is the interior diameter of PEX is a lot smaller than like a copper pipe. So like if you want to run a 1/2 inch copper pipe, you got to run 3/4 inch PEX to get the same diameter for flow. So it's something to be aware of.
Yeah,
but there's also a lot of advantages about PEX. You don't have to solder it. Crimping the joints is extremely reliable. I love having it around for my own stuff, and I keep a lot of extra supplies for jerry-rigging plumbing because I tell you, when stuff goes wrong, I've always got to do something weird with the plumbing.
Uncle Al, he is saying make sure you have battery banks, and I kind of agree with that. Even if you don't have solar, you can still have battery banks alongside of it because you can run like LED lighting off batteries. They use very little power, and then they put out a big bright light, So that is sort of a good idea, is make sure that you have battery banks just as a backup, You don't have to like rely on them, but you want to have something that's going to be there that like, you're always going to have a power outage. If you live in a real cold area, I lived in some really cold states like North Dakota, and I lived in Montana, and all kinds of states that get just freezing cold, and everybody tries to have a battery bank so that they can have some sort of backup lighting for when, the power lines get iced up and the power goes out and stuff like that, So battery banks do make sense. It don't matter where you live or what part of the country, a battery bank is going to be helpful. But you want to make sure it's the deep cell batteries. I always get in trouble for not saying that.
Hey, D-Mac. Oh, sorry.
Yes,
go ahead.
Sir.
One of the things I was going to talk about was they actually make a plastic that you can put over your windows, and we use this. It's like a shrink plastic that you tape it up around your windows, and then you use like a hair dryer and you run it over the plastic, and it'll actually form to your windows. And they do help a lot. And then on top of that, then we cover the window with a blanket or a towel or something that will keep the cold air out. Sorry, my cat.
Well, when I lived in Denver, Colorado, Augusta Springs, Colorado, from Denver, we had a horrific blizzard that knocked everything out for about 3 weeks. It's sort of why I brought this up. And no one was going to the stores or doing anything else. And so to insulate the windows, we just piled up snow on the outside of the windows, and it really helped.
That does work.
Anytime you can cover the windows is a good thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it here. As the winter approaches, they put up the film on the outside.
And the modern refugee had said something about live in the basement. And yeah, because you get insulation. If you have a basement, the ground can, it can help insulate and help keep you warm. I wished I still had a basement. So
yeah, not everybody has a basement, darn it.
Yeah.
I guess you could go sleep under the house. Just kidding.
I don't know if I fixed my mic, if I'm any better or not. I don't know if I'm still on the robot.
Oh, you sound much better now.
Yeah, that's better.
Cool. So randomly, one of those other random things that you want to prep for. I'm moving back to Georgia, so I'm going to a place where like winter isn't nearly as rough as it is here in Utah. But I'm taking this stuff with me as opposed to just getting rid of it because when I need it in Georgia, it's going to be nice. But just like right here, I got like a bucket of salt. like an extra couple bags of salt and just be able to salt your driveways and sidewalks so you can walk when you need to, because that's, if they're not maintaining the roads, and if you do need to get around, you're going to want to be able to shovel, a square shovel or something like that is going to help to clear the property. So.
Let's see, I'm trying to get to talk about solar chargers. How many people believe in solar chargers?
I'm a big fan of solar.
I believe in it, but I don't have one.
Everyone should have a solar charger. I mean, they're a dime a dozen these days. I mean, you can get them a little bitty ones that will at least keep small appliances charged up in the event you have a blizzard or an ice storm where you can't get out. I remember when I was younger in North Dakota, it used to snow so deep that you would have to tunnel to get out of your front door. You open the front door and there's just nothing but a wall of snow there.
It's like that here. It's like that here.
So,
I've been trapped in places because of the snow before.
It used to be good when I was a kid, but it's not a good thing when you're an adult.
Right?
When you're being an adult, that's not any fun anymore.
Well, when I was a kid, we used to jump off the roof into the snow. But not now.
Hey, Southern Ohio Prepping's in here. Did you get your link? I think I sent you one. If you want to jump up here, feel free. Check your email.
One
I'm
of those
still looking at the list.
randomly.
Go ahead.
As we're talking about this, it's not really like blizzard prep, but it's just good preps for winter type of driving and stuff like that. Because not many people that are in, like, you're not going to have snow chains, and you're not going to really use your snow chains realistically ever. I've had to put chains on my rig once in the 10 years that I've been out here in snow country. But there has been plenty of times that I've gotten stuck in snow, and one of the random tricks, and I'm sure most of you guys recognize and are aware of, but if you deflate your tires, like if you're stuck in snow, the number one thing to do is deflate your tires by half. Take them down to like 18 psi, 15 psi, and then try to drive out slow, because you're going to elongate your profile of your tire on the snow, so it's going to be more of a tank tread than just a little bit of a profile touching down, and you're going to be more likely to be able to get yourself out of a stuck situation with flatter tires.
Very good tip,
Yeah.
D-Mac. I just remember that as you started saying that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've heard that
Yeah,
before.
I did too. As soon as you started talking about it, I remember doing that many times.
That's also a way if you're trapped in mud or in sand, any type of loose ground, bedrock, anything like that. If you need to move and you can't move, lower the air on your tires, and you'd be amazed at what your car will be capable of at that point.
What's like the same concept?
Uh-oh,
Snowshoes.
we got a cat in the house, you guys.
A cat.
Yeah, Pooples. Yeah, he can set up a tent in your living room. And
That's
you know
a really
what?
good.
I've done
That's
that.
actually a really good idea. A shelter within a shelter, because you could trap heat inside the tent a lot easier than in the whole bedroom or in the whole room or whatever. Sleeping bag inside of a sleeping bag if it gets really cold.
4 people in a sleeping bag works good.
Well,
Stack
last
them up.
winter it was 40 below here in Minnesota, and the electricity went out, and we didn't really know exactly how to deal with it.
Yeah, we need to, when you aren't used to cold weather, best thing to do is go buy you a book. But actually, just common sense will get you through it. Make sure, like D-Mac said, make sure all the doors or windows are closed. Seal up your windows. Make sure you throw a towel or something in front of the doors that go outside the dwelling. And always make sure that you have a CO2 meter so that you're not suffocating yourself. I have CO2 meters in all my rooms here, but that's just how I am now that I'm an old guy. But
Don't you mean CO meters? Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, yeah.
Yeah, that's not CO2. That's CO.
CO, whatever. I'm old. I'm old. Just go ahead and knock me in the head a couple of times. I'm good with it.
And,
Yeah,
and remember, if you have a gas stove or a gas range, and if you still have natural gas running through, if the power's out, you might still have natural gas working. You can always do the ghetto heater and turn the oven on and just open the oven to heat the house with your oven.
With regular heat oven, electric. I opened it. That's how I heated the living room.
Yep.
That is a ghetto heater. I've used that many times. Even
Well,
if
if you
it
have
wasn't a
gas, it's
blizzard.
not going to go out just because the electric goes out. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a pretty good storm out here in the desert. It was everyone, the houses are kind of often built light on insulation, so everyone was trying to use natural gas, so we ended up with a statewide natural gas shortage at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy going into the store, seeing like every space heater, everything else was out. And then, of course, with all the space heaters plugged in, the power started, brownouts everywhere.
Right.
Let's go with how to help your neighbors out when something like this happens. Sometimes your neighbors really don't know what to do either. They may be new to
I
the
gave my
area.
neighbors food.
Yeah, they may be new to the area and not quite understand that, hey, it gets really cold here in the wintertime. They didn't know that when they were moving there. They go, oh, we heard that it got cold there, but we didn't know it got freezing cold, So you may want to keep some canned food around for them and maybe go over and show them how to use their blankets and stuff on their windows and stuff, if you can get out of your house. Like I said, there's been times when I've been not able to get out the door,
Well, yeah, and, if things are real cold and things have frozen over, you might need to go check on them and make certain they have water. They may not have even realized they don't have water anymore.
People in my state from other places that are really warm. Like they were brought here from places where it's hugely hot all the time, and they weren't expecting our weather.
Something that Hooples brought up is a wood stove.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't that what D-Mac said, that he put a wood stove in his basement?
I may have been robot on that one, but I can show you real quick. So we actually, right next to my water heater, I have, because we have the chimney going up for the exhaust for a water heater. And we actually got it plumbed to where we had my wood stove was plumbed into the chimney there, so I could run the wood stove in the basement. Obviously, you're going to want to have, your carbon monoxide and stuff. You have to have them installed appropriately. But I just installed it just recently. But having that, I never really used it. I used it a couple of times just to make sure it worked. But it was impressive how I could, you can heat the whole damn house. My house isn't that big, but I could absolutely heat the whole house with that thing going down in the basement. So, the heat just right. It works really well. So wood burning stove is definitely a good thing to have, but you need to make sure that it is properly plumbed so that you're not getting any sort of exhaust leaks. So,
what kind of wood do you burn, D-Mac?
I use hardwood. I have a lot of apricot, so I do a lot of apricot because it burns pretty well. We had a big tree that we took down a couple years ago that we've been working, but either that or red oak typically. So,
and a point I want to bring up too is a lot of the cities now, you can actually buy firewood at some convenience stores and things like that. So even if you live in the city and you can install a wood stove, you can still get firewood.
Well, keep in mind, those bundles are really expensive. They're typically like $5 for like 5 or 6 chunks. If you want to source firewood, obviously you got, there's plenty of guys that have, cords of wood out in their front yard, out in the country, if you go that way. But in the city here, what I've found has been really pretty inexpensive comparatively is I found a couple of like barbecue specific place, like stores that do barbecues and smokers and stuff, and they sell bulk firewood by the cord, by the truckload or whatever. So I just go there and I'll buy a cord of hardwood, and that lasts
forever and then some. I wouldn't even buy a full cord because I don't have storage for quite that much, but we'd go buy a half truckload or something like that, and because I use it for my smoke pit, so I had quite a nice little chunk of wood laying around the house. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
Right, but at least it's
asked
available.
about pellet stoves.
Yeah.
He
At
asked
least
if pellet stoves are better than wood stoves, and I could say they are because you can store pellets easier than you can store wood. And pellets come in a plastic sack, and you just kind of stack them up in the corner somewhere.
well,
And
pellets
I could be just I don't know, compromised on it. I used to work in a pellet stove factory, so the guy that invented the pellet stove, I worked for that company, so I know quite a bit about stoves, and they are a lot more efficient than a wood stove.
absolutely. The house that I'm moving to in Georgia, we have we have a pellet stove in the main fireplace right there, so I'm pretty excited about that. I can't wait to show you guys this property that I'm moving to in a couple of weeks, man. It's pretty awesome. It's I've got it's a pretty awesome off the grid type of spot right there. We've got a propane and a diesel generator, 16 kilowatt generator on the house. I got solar. We've got the pellet burning stoves and stuff. So it'll be pretty cool to show off some of the gadgets that Grandpa and I have installed over the last 20 years out there. So,
And what is
yeah,
the
pellet
best
stoves are
option for an
awesome.
apartment? If you don't have a house, what is the best option for an apartment?
Oh, to heat it?
To heat it if the electricity's out and there's a blizzard and all that, like you were talking about, because I live in an apartment and actually right in my lease it says that you can't bring fuel items and store them and stuff in your place.
Can you have okay, this one's kind of silly, but is there access to like a charcoal grill or anything like that nearby?
Well, there's one in our yard. I don't
Okay.
own it.
Well, yeah. Well, go get it lit up and go heat rocks. I'm serious. Heat rocks up real hot in the charcoal grill. Bring them inside, and they will radiate heat for quite a while. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but heating up rocks and closing them up in an enclosed space actually works.
Sweat lodge it. You can even sweat lodge it at that point. You can add a little bit of humidity, to those hot rocks, and make it, and spread the warmth that way.
Another thing is,
I hope that's a decent idea for you, Alana.
Or if you have an option of electric blankets. Electric blankets will work. You could even run them off a battery pack.
And that's one of those things that
I do have an electric blanket.
Now it's understood, Alana, that you're not allowed to have the fuel or any of that sort of stuff, but it's
Well, combustibles, wood, they don't like it stored in the apartment. I don't know why, but they won't let us.
Sure. Now Reed was showing off earlier at the beginning of the chat, like one of those little Mr. Buddy heaters with a small propane, Coleman sized propane, little 1 pound propane tank. Like, I understand that might be going against the bylaws of the thing right there, but if it's, that you're not going to necessarily have to worry about the volatility of a single, couple cans of small propane right there with your little Mr. Buddy in the closet. I understand that it goes against the rules of the apartment, but if it's, if you're living in Minnesota where it gets down to -40, it's,
Easier to hide than a whole thing of wood pile.
Yeah, if it's life and death, I don't think that they're going to bitch too much if you.
A Mr. Buddy in your closet, and you pull that thing out when everyone else is out of power, and they're not going to be policing you there. You just have to make sure you don't burn down the apartment complex.
They'll be coming over saying, "Can we stay with you for
just
a little
keep
while?"
it wrapped up in brown paper or something, right? So it just looks like some oddball thing stuffed away.
True.
That would be one of those like sins of omission, I think, that I would be making if I were living in that situation where they were like, because I understand the bylaws, and with them having so many, the population density of apartment complex is so rich that they want to control the possible outbreak of fire and stuff like that. So that's why they have those rules in place. But if it's a matter of life and death, I can assume at that point that your little space heat, your little propane space heater in the corner right there is going to be comfortably off the radar.
If it's all out if everything's out and nothing's moving around outside, I don't think your property managers are going to come over and check on you to see if you have a propane heater or whatever you have, you know.
And if he does come and check, he's just going to want to sit in there and stay warm, realistically.
No, I just need to find a way to hide it until this disaster takes place.
There you go. Yeah. You could also, you know, everybody preps candles. Just light a whole bunch of candles. They actually will warm up your place if you got enough of them lit up.
Well, and with candles, something to consider is beeswax versus paraffin wax. Because beeswax candles, beeswax naturally burns hotter and it burns cleaner and brighter. So you're gonna, like, if you have a beeswax candle, you are gonna get more BTUs out of that than you are off of a paraffin candle.
And let me find it. 307. He said Coleman lanterns put off heat.
That's a really good really good option as well, because that gives light and heat right there. Your Coleman stove is going to heat, you know, like if you're using a Coleman stove to cook on, you can use that as a little kind of ghetto heater. Obviously, you're going to want to have your carbon monoxide detectors with any of the open flame stuff, even if it's clean burning fuel. You know, you're going to want to have a little bit of ventilation when you're running that sort of stuff. So.
Camp Patton says it's always better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
Yeah, the only downside to a Coleman lantern, though, is unlike Mr. Buddy, the Mr. Buddy heaters have one of those oxygen depletion sensors, so they'll actually turn off if the oxygen level gets low. Coleman lanterns don't, so that's the only downside you're going to have to keep an eye on. It's don't sleep with it on. I wouldn't recommend.
Especially if the windows are closed.
Right. Something else I saw too. Acer said
Sounds like everybody's going to Corsair trainers if it gets too cold. The party's at Corsair's house.
And there was also
Hey Tony, how you doing?
There was also the topic of layering your clothes and using wool socks, wool blankets, and layering your outer clothing. You know, you layer your clothing and then you have your snowsuits, hats, gloves, that kind of stuff on too.
Yeah, that's right. That works better, actually.
It works amazingly. They the adage out here in Utah when it gets cold is that you want to dress up like an onion and you want to put on as many layers as you can. So you'll have your t-shirt, your long sleeve shirt, your lightweight jacket, your midweight jacket, and then your shell on over that. And you know, and the beauty of that is that as you're working, you can shed layers, but still keep your outer shells and stuff and control your body heat that way.
It's easier to take off than it is to put on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, D-Mac, do you want to
about layering my clothes?
Oh, D-Mac, do you want to mention how to control your sweating when you're working when it's really cold? Because if you sweat when you're really cold, that's really bad.
It absolutely is. Like, you are gonna sweat, but it's one of those things that you do have to you have to be aware of it, because you'll, like, if you're working hard, like I know this is whenever I go snowshoeing, so at least once a week in the wintertime I'll go snowshoeing for quite a few miles. And when you're actually in the heat of the snowshoeing, you are burning a lot of calories and you're producing a lot of heat and you're sweating like a slave, man. You're really putting out some energy there. And so, like, half the time I'll be, it'll be 20 degrees outside and I'll be in a t-shirt while I'm hiking up the mountain. But the second that I get to the top of the mountain, I will take that t-shirt off and put a dry one on, because I know that the second that I stop the activity level, hypothermia will kick in really quick. It happens pretty fast. So you want to stay dry. So you want to have dry base layers with you so that you can quickly change. The beauty of it is that, like, it's not hard to change when it's 10-15 degrees out if you're moving around, but you have to be careful of that, because 10-15 degrees hypothermia can set in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. There's been plenty of times that I've been up snowboarding when it's 10 degrees outside and just taking the glove off to zip up the jacket to get the goggles on right, my fingers all go numb and instantly within 10 seconds of being out of the glove there. So you really want to make sure that if you are going to be doing any activity levels while it's cold outside, that you need to have extra base layers with you, so that you can get that. And you're going to want to have wicking materials close to your skin. I'm a really big fan of merino wool. It's a little bit expensive, but it absolutely works, and it works amazingly well. It traps the heat, it wicks the moisture, and it keeps you warm, man. Like even if it's wet. So you really want to focus on wool base layers if you're going to be active in cold environments, right there, because they just work
Lana
better.
just brought up a good point. She's allergic to wool. What's a good alternative to that if you're allergic to wool?
I mean, there's plenty of synthetics that you can get out there that are going to be comparable to wool. You're just going to want, you're going to have to spend up a little bit on some of those technical fabrics. You're going to have your Polartex. You're going to have your different, goose down insulating layers is going to be a good thing as well. Obviously, it's expensive, but goose down, really good. It's really lofty, so it traps heat wonderfully. So those are good alternatives to that. With you're going to have polyester based stuff at that point. Silk is also a really good base layer.
Goretex is good. Old man brought that up. Goretex.
Goretex is really going to be your outer layers right there. Goretex is going to be your waterproof membrane that's going to protect you from the elements. So that's going to be your focus on your outer layers. So your base layers, you're going to want to have like natural fibers as much as possible, or you're going to want to have like your Under Armour kind of water, moisture wicking specific fabrics that are made. So any of those kind of athletically built shirts work pretty well. That's what I use when I go snowboarding. I use that over wool when I'm snowboarding just because I'm moving so much.
Yeah, I use Goretex gloves when I'm snowmobiling.
Yeah. Goretex
There's
is
an
an
interesting
amazing
thing going
fabric,
on in the chat where they're talking about synthetics versus natural fibers. And the only thing I really warn people about on synthetics, though, is when I did training out at White Sands Missile Range, they made us very aware of how bad a burn is if you are wearing a synthetic, how it melts into your skin.
Yes.
So if you're dealing with fire risks,
Yeah.
be careful with synthetics, guys.
Well, sure. Yeah. If you're by a flame, it'll melt right into your skin. But it's good for being layering in the cold.
If we have too much cold weather, we'll just go up to Hoople's place. He's got a shire we could all hang out at.
Visit Hoople's Shire.
He said we could all go up there and smoke weed and drink booze and all that stuff. I heard him say it. It's legal there, We have another thing we haven't even touched on yet, and that is how you deal with your medical issues while it's all frozen out and you're isolated from society. What would you do then?
I have saved medication.
Yeah, that's like for me, because I have asthma and stuff. I keep my butt out of very cold air, or I will do something to cover my face up real well so I can heat the air up. Breathing that cold air is just murder.
I'm telling you, I got the same problem.
Yeah.
I have asthma and COPD. Figure that out.
That's what I have too, asthma and COPD, and I have to wear one of the masks that kind of block the cold air.
Mm-hmm.
When it's
so I make certain I have a stockpile of medications myself and everything else, but I want to make certain that I don't put myself in any danger of needing emergency services, because if you're on your own, well, you're on your own. You just got to be careful.
I can't even walk around if it's like 30, 40 below outside. I'll just instant asthma attack or something.
Yeah, if it gets way too cold outside, I can tell by just opening the door. And it's cold out there, I just shut the door and I look at my kid and I tell him I need you to go to the store.
Well, I don't have a car either, so I have to walk around in the winter.
One of the things I've been wanting
to... You can haul your groceries into Walmart now, They have that new delivery system, so...
I have had them delivered before because it was too cold to go to the store.
You guys really need to take care, all kidding aside, if you have any kind of health issues, you really need to make sure that you're stocking up on any of your medications or anything that you may need in case of a big event of any kind, whether it's a power outage or a snowstorm, or even if something like somebody decided to drop something on us. If you're not able to get out and get what you need, then you just will throw yourself under the bus right there. It's like me. I have like 3 months ahead of my medications, and you have to be very careful about doing it. I'm lucky I have a doctor that lets me order ahead of everything. So what I do is I order ahead, and then whatever I have left over from the month before, I put in to another bottle, and then I've slowly gained months ahead. So that would be something that if you have any kind of health issues or risks, make sure that you're working with your doctors and whatever, and make sure you're taking care of yourself now before it's too late.
Have you guys seen those Zippo hand warmer things where they like run for like 8 hours?
Yes.
Those things are amazing, dude. Those things work. They totally work. They absolutely work.
Yeah, I've been planning to get some and make a little air heater. So if it's super cold, it can heat the air as I breathe it.
So randomly, one of the things that I've done, and I do this for my Jeep whenever I go, because my Jeep is like my hunting rig and my my outdoor rig, and when I go hunting, it's pretty fucking cold outside. Sorry, bad language. It's pretty freaking cold outside when I go hunting, and I sleep in my Jeep because I'm lazy and I don't want to pitch the tent, and I don't have an RV or any of that super fancy stuff. But what I did is I've got one of those UCO candles, the UCO candle lanterns. It's like the small little collapse. Kazi. Sorry. It's one of those like small little kind of backpacking little candle lantern thingies, and it just holds a single candle in there. Then they make one that holds 3 candles in there. I made like the I'll have to go get it out in a sec just so you guys can see it. But I took like an old soda can, and I cut the soda can apart, and I made like a cover for the glass globe of this candle lantern so that I can block light. And that that little lantern alone, I light that inside the Jeep with a single beeswax candle in there. The single candle will go 12 hours, but I leave that one candle going right next to the open window, and man, my Jeep stays super cozy warm on the inside. And it can be 15, 20 degrees outside, and it can be snowing. And I stay pretty comfy in there with that single candle burning, and I don't have to run the rig at all. I don't have to turn the heat on at all. Because that little heater it just puts out the heat, and it's with that plus my body heat and my breath alone keeps it warm. So
I know there's a lot of times when I went hunting, I'd be up like you, D-Mac, up where the snow line is and stuff. And there's really not much you can do about staying warm unless you're prepared for it. I used to take one of those little catalytic heaters that you pour white gas into, and I would light it, and then I would get in the back of my truck and open the topper on my truck. I'd just keep it propped open with something inside of there, and then I'd just throw my sleeping bag up in there, and I would sleep in there. Man, that thing will keep you warm all friggin' night. But make sure you have plenty of ventilation on those catalytic heaters. So those would work like in a home too, but you would have to make sure that you have the proper ventilation. Otherwise, you're going to get gassed out.
Those heaters are getting hard to find. It's annoying, Will. I wish they were more common, but they're getting hard to buy anymore.
No, I've got a couple. I've got a couple of those old Coleman catalytic heaters, and I had to get them through thrift purchasing and antique shopping, and I'm happy that I have them because they are amazing. They absolutely work. They're dangerous as all get out, man. You knock it over and you burn the whole fucking village down. But
I had a buddy that went with me. He caught his sleeping bag on fire with one.
Another random trick, Alana, that I was going to say, trying to keep yourself warm at night in your apartment, is if you have your sleeping bag or you bundle up, like if you can get your water warm, if you can boil water somehow, throw that into a single wall canteen, either an Nalgene or a steel canteen, and you can throw that bottle of boiling water down into the bed, into your feet with you, and that will help provide heat for a couple of hours as the water's cooling down inside that bottle. And then we talked on this a couple of panels ago, but Cheryl, I think, brought it up, having a hot water, like the hot water bottles, those little flexible hot water bottles that you can use to heat up. That's really an easy way to keep yourself warm while you're bundled in your bed, is to have hot water bottles with you.
Heck yeah, that was what they did in the old days. I was just looking at a comment up here, 307 JOAT. He's saying Under Armour, Mountain Hardwear, Patagonia, North Face, all that stuff. Good garments to have on because they're waterproof and windproof.
That was one of those tough pills to swallow that I had a couple of years ago, because I kept on having issues with weather breaking into my shells when I was out and about out in the woods. Because I like to go into the deeper areas of the backcountry, and I experience exposure a little bit more so than some of the other everyday guys around here do. And I finally invested into like the really expensive outerwear. I've got a nice little slew of Arc'teryx equipment and Mountain Hardwear equipment, and I can absolutely tell you, like, I spent an extra $100 on the jacket, $150 on the jacket. It was well worth it, in my opinion, though, because they like the more tech, like they really are technical fabrics, and they work phenomenally well when you're out and about.
That
So
3M
if you
Insulate stuff is amazing.
So if you can afford, if you can afford to get into some Mountain Hardwear or some North Face or some Patagonia stuff like that, like, absolutely, because it really does work, but there is a startup cost involved with that stuff. There is absolutely a conformity cost involved.
I think you can pick some of that stuff up on eBay.
Well, and that's the beauty of me being out here in Utah, is like I got a lot of my stuff secondhand, because a lot of guys are really rich out here, and they'll sell their new jacket at the end of the season to get next season's jacket, and that's where I'll swoop in and I'll get my.
Hitting up the thrift stores is a great place to find that.
Yep.
That's how I usually got most of my snowmobiling stuff. Is most of my friends, they were a whole lot richer than me, and they would buy a new sled and then all new gear. And then I'd say, what are you going to do with the old gear? I'm just going to put it away. And I said, oh, well, just sell it to me. And
I'll take those hand-me-downs. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, my asthma is actually pretty good in the cold. But when it gets down to like 0 degrees and less, that's when it starts really kicking my butt. And stuff. Stuff like that. So, but I really try to stock up on medicines and all that. But one thing I also make certain to have is I got a tea kettle that I put in my car that runs off a 12 volt, so that I can make hot tea in my car, and it really helps sometimes when things are bugging me. Especially if you're like stuck waiting on something, it's getting cold, you can drink a hot drink. That really helps heat you up. Really does.
Well, and this is actually kind of. Oh, sorry to cut you off, Alana. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Nice. Another thing that
about the tea. Sorry, guys.
And this actually builds off of some of the stuff. Oh God, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. No, you're good. Oh no, this actually goes off of what you're talking about a little bit last week on the panel, Reed, and that's and you actually bring up a pretty good point. But having your 12-volt appliances. That's a big deal. Like especially like with situations like this where you have like short-term blizzards, short-term, infrastructure collapse where it's not hitting the fan, things are going to rebound within a week, a month, or something like that. So you're not having to like prep for the end of the world. It's not a bad idea to have a tea kettle that you can plug into your cigarette lighter out in your car that you can boil water with. It's not a bad idea to have a little bit, something or other that you can plug into the 12-volt outlets there and run, because you can, as we've talked about on every panel, if you have your solar, your battery bank, you're going to be able to run those 12-volt appliances really easily. And you can go and get those 12-volt appliances dirt cheap at any truck stop. Go to any Love's or any truck stop in your neighborhood, and you can go and get that stuff for really, really cheap. So,
yeah,
definitely good ideas.
And the other thing it's also we should all remember is, if it's really, really cold and you're freezing really bad in your home, go into your car and start it.
Yep, go sit in your car. Yeah.
If you have one.
If you can get to the car.
Just make sure that your car's not in the garage while it's running.
Yeah, don't make that mistake.
I know we've been talking about all these things you can get. I just want to say that I bought this little stove at Walmart, and it collapses in like this, and it has those little white pellet things inside of it.
Little Nesbit stove, yeah.
A Nesbit stove.
Yeah, it folds up like this, and you just kind of drop the pellets in there, and it just takes. You can use a match, and match will just start it right up. And those things burn forever. So,
have a ton of those.
If worst comes to worst, I think I paid like $8 for it. It was really cheap, and I just throw it in my bag because if I get stranded somewhere, I don't even have to have my my damn ferro rod and all that stuff. All I have to have is my trusty bit to light one of those little pellet things up to warm my hands or cook some soup or whatever I need to do, So that might be something that would save your life if you got blizzarded in and you don't have power or gas or anything like that, and you're saying, oh, how am I going to cook something to eat, Well, that would save your life. Tell me.
And those stoves come in MREs.
Yeah, they're kind of handy. I really didn't know anything about them until I bought that stove, and now you can even buy replacement tablets. Oh, they're like $4 for 10 or 20 of them.
They give those out in the rations that are given out in other countries, like not here, but in like the French ones and the German ones. They give those little stoves to the soldiers with all of the tablets and everything, and that's how I knew they existed. And yeah, he's right. You can buy them at the store too. Ow.
So, it's just most of it is you have to have, instead of having hindsight, do it now. So when the time comes, you go, oh, I should have listened to those guys. I've got that.
Of all the stoves are really like camping stoves and all methods. That's kind of one of my random little isms that I really like to do. I like to make little handmade stove. I like to have all the alternate little cooking methods. And I saw Hooples actually did a review I didn't watch the whole video, but he talked about his BioLite stove that he had out on his camp out recently. I have one of those as well, and I love my little BioLite stove, man. They're wood burning stoves, and it's got the little thermo generator in there. So that it, the heat from the flame charges the battery that runs the fan that gets it kind of in that rocket stove type of deal right there. That thing's been a hell of a stove, man, because it runs on, you can do pellets in it. You can do just any sort of biomass in it whatsoever. And I've really enjoyed it because it's got pretty cool attachments like the grill attachment and the kettle attachment. It works, and you kind of have like a somewhat limitless supply of fuel with those biomass stoves like that, because all it takes is a branch to be able to cook a meal, so that's like, so with that, I have my BioLite, kind of the professional version one, but whenever I go hiking, whenever I do my day hikes, I always have like one of the little tiny tin can stoves that I put together. That's like they're like little gasifier style wood burning stoves. They're made out of tin cans, and I made $1.50 for each of the stoves that I've made, and they actually work really well. You can bring a cup of water, you can bring 16 ounces of water to a boil in 10-12 minutes or so, and that's it's an easy alternative way to cook without having to have any sort of fuel other than a couple of little pieces of wood or pine cone, petrified poop, any of that stuff. So.
Petrified poop.
Good old petrified poop. Huh?
That's right.
I remember reading in Little House in the Prairie how they would gather up buffalo poop and cook over it.
In Little House?
Cow chip. They call those cow chips, don't they?
Yeah.
One of the things that I see that's not done a lot with the MREs. When I worked at the factory, I worked in QA, and the way we heated up the MREs is to simply stick the pouch down in hot water. and it heats it up. You know, I mean, that's such an easy way of doing it. And if your pouch is clean, your water is still going to be fine. So
That's the beauty of those foil packed MREs is that you can heat them 1.5 million ways, man. You throw them on a bed of coals, put it on an engine block, put it in a bottle of hot water, 1.5 million ways to heat those things up. So,
yeah,
so if you guys actually,
because sometimes people can't be out in the military using boiling water, but if you're eating them yourself, you can definitely boil them. You worked at AmeriQual, didn't you, Cheryl?
oh, sorry. Yeah, I did. Is that AmeriQual?
Okay. Well, they're still making MREs.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you guys notice, everything that we've talked about tonight is just all about what we do to prepare every day. If you prepare what we do every day to get your preps together, it comes into play for whatever we want to use it for. Even these little bitty fires that we're talking about tonight, like blizzards or freeze outs or big snowstorms or whatever.
Well, next time we'll have to do the super earthquake for California.
Oh yeah, we got to get Steve involved.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of my big
Steve knows all about those earthquakes.
Some of my big takeaways from all of these, because like obviously, if you're preparing for one disaster, you're preparing for multiple disasters because your preparations are gonna be cross compatible. Depending on you pick your disaster, it's going to work out for you if you have the proper preps, if you have the right cooking utensils, the right alternative fuel methods, the way to procure and treat water, the way to create shelter, whether that's warmth or shade, whether you need to focus on all those basics right there so that you can be prepared for any sort of thing. But like I think my biggest takeaways, the things that I prepare for the most is one of my big deals is fire suppression. Like that fire suppression scares me the most because I fear that once there's any sort of infrastructure collapse and you don't have the first responders running at a moment's notice right there, you're going to have a lot of careless people doing a lot of stupid things, and it can be hot outside and it can be cold outside, and you're going to have to worry about fires. Because people are either going to be cooking outside over fire or they're going to be warming their house up with the fire. So making sure that you know how to deal with a fire or how to get away from a fire if it happens on your block. Making sure that you like when you look in my closet next to my bed, there's an AR-15 right there, and right next to the AR-15 is a 20-pound fire extinguisher. So either way, if I have to fight my way out of my house, either with one or the other, I'm going to fight my way out of the house with one or the other. And realistically, I see myself going to that fire extinguisher much more. Like I see that as a much more realistic prep than the firearms that I have and the protective measures that I have, because the fire extinguisher, not only does it suppress fire, but you can suppress a fight or a gang fight really efficiently with a fire extinguisher. Man, I have put quite a few people on their bellies that were in a parking lot, causing mayhem and ruckus, and you go out there with a fire extinguisher, steal all of their oxygen from them while they're trying to run around and act tough. Everybody gets laid out because nobody can breathe when you lay that stuff out and you put that cloud down. So it is a really good crowd control method if you need crowd control methods, but it also will put your fire out if you need to get out of your house. So
I agree with you that fire suppression is extremely important, D-Mac. Actually, I got into fire suppression because my father almost burned down our house as a kid. So I got into it very young.
Yeah, everyone should have a fire extinguisher or two around. That's for sure. I agree with that. Also, what we didn't cover if you're in a snowstorm or a blizzard and all your power goes out and your water's froze up, you can't get any water. Don't forget, you can always go out and get some of that snow. Don't get the yellow snow, though.
Yep. Snow is clean. All you got to do is melt it.
Was a fireman. So I know a little fire safety.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, though, if we're actually talking about fires, though, is when you're picking out your extinguishers, you need to be kind of selective in them, because you really want to get one that is good multi-purpose, because certain fire classes can't be handled by certain extinguishers. And the one you're usually going to see is the ABC extinguisher, which will cover a lot of stuff. But like if you got like a metal fire going on, none of your home extinguishers are going to handle that and stuff. That's a Class K extinguisher, and they're like $1,000.
Right.
So here's one of mine. Here's my big 30-pounder right here. This guy's big. He's scuba tank size. Another thing you're going to want to look for on fire extinguishers: don't buy the crappy little kid or first alert ones that you see at Walmart, because they are made with plastic joints. So one thing you're going to want to focus on is like this joint right here, the connection on the bottle. A lot of the crappy ones, these are plastic housings right here, and those will go in a fire. They don't hold up to temperature, and they don't hold the pressure right. So you want to make sure that you get ones that have all metal fittings right there and at your hose, so that you can't, like, because these things will hold pressure for 10 years, whereas those ones with plastic fittings, they'll lose pressure after a year and a half. So you want to spend up on your fire extinguishers.
Yeah, and there's I found some of the best deals on fire extinguishers is from mail order, like a McMaster Car or places like that, the industrial supply places. So, weird comment for the day.
Well, and you want to make sure, like, so I've got like the fires, like it's the weird thing. So you want to make sure that you have fire extinguishers strategically placed across your homestead as well. You don't want to have it to the stove, because if your stove lights up on fire, you're not necessarily going to be able to get to that fire extinguisher that's right next to the stove. So you want to have it close enough to be able to fight the fire, but far enough away to where you can actually get to it. So, I've got I've got a 20-pounder up on top of the Jeep that sits out in the driveway. If I had to, boom, I've got one outside right there. I've got one downstairs that, like, right in between the water heater and the workshop, so that I can grab that if there's anything up there. I have them close to the entrance and exit points of the house. I've got one in the closet of the kid's bedroom right there, so that at any point, if I was in any room and we had to fight our way out of that house with that fire suppressive method, you can do it. Now, keep in mind as well, you're going to want to get bigger fire extinguishers than you think you can afford, because those little tiny ones that you put underneath your sink, that's going to give you about 3 to 5 seconds worth of spray. So you're going to want to have bigger extinguishers so you can actually extinguish the fire.
Also, you guys might like, I've got a video you might like, DMAC. It's called Saving the Bacon on my channel. It's about one of my uses of a fire extinguisher to save the bacon, literally. It's a good, funny video.
I'll have to check it out for sure.
I think I saw that one. All right, I think we've covered everything, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a good chat.
Is there any questions from the side chat? I know we've been trying to keep up with you guys.
I think we've covered all the side chat questions. And we touched on everything they
It's
said.
actually a very good discussion tonight. I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, with Blizzard,
we got Corsair's permission to go to California if all hell breaks loose. Hooples is going to let us go to his shire. Everything's kind of covered.
No, we also need to do a video on prepping for a giant heat wave, especially like a big heat wave up north where not many people have air conditioning. That'd be a good one to talk about.
Oh God!
Up at the shire? Are you talking about
that one? That would be a good one, and I would have some things to say on that one as well, because I for the last 8 years here in Salt Lake, I have not had air conditioning. We only have a swamp cooler in our house, and it gets hot out here. Like our summers, it's dry, so we have the benefit of being able to use evaporative coolers. But on average out in Utah, today it hit 104. Tomorrow it's supposed to be 105, 106-ish. So it's like it gets pretty warm out here. There are many of methods that you can do to make homemade air conditioning unit type of things that are super cheap, that are super effective. A 5-gallon bucket, a box fan, and some ice go a long way to being able to cool down.
5-gallon bucket works good. You can make a swamp fan right out of a 5-gallon bucket.
Yep.
Palmetto's
So that's-
mentioning that we should also have a good stockpile of baking soda to deal with fires, and he's darn right.
Baking soda is
Baking
just one of those things that you should have for all the a million uses that it is good for, because baking soda is an amazing compound.
You don't buy the little boxes, buy the bag.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that plenty of times. Go buy those 20 pounders or whatever size they are, right?
Because it's good for a lot of things.
No, so I think the take home for blizzard prep is that you want to make sure that you can control your shelter, control your environment, so you can control your heat. That's the number one take home, is that you're going to have to think small. You're not going to be able to heat your whole house when the power's out and everything like that. So heat the 1 or 2 rooms that you're going to dwell in. Get creative with insulating your windows and your doors. I know out in here in Utah, I've seen a lot of neighbors that they'll, at the beginning of the season, when they know it's going to snow and you're going to have a couple feet laying around for a while, they'll actually, for like all their ground level windows that for the basement and everything like that, they'll fill up black bag, like just trash bags full of leaves and yard chippings and everything like that, and actually just put it in front of the window for the whole season. And that will help with insulation loss and with heat loss and with drafts coming in through the windows and stuff like that. If you're in an area that you know you're going to get big snow drifts and you can possibly get snowed into your house, make sure you keep a shovel inside the house when the snowstorm starts so that you can shovel your way out.
Or a chainsaw to go through the attic.
Exactly. You know, like any of that stuff. You know, it's all, you know, if you're in that environment, you're already going to be more inclined to be prepared for cold. So this is, you know, blizzard prep is realistically one of those things that, like, if you don't have blizzards regularly, you realistically all you're going to need is a couple sheets of plastic. Make sure you have some fuel to run some stoves or some candles, stuff like that, and make sure you have layers so that you can layer up.
All good advice.
It's not hard to make yourself warm, but it's really hard to make yourself cold. You know? So,
Well, you can keep yourself warm, and you can also use your window as a refrigerator. I did. I put snow on my window and kept my food good during the blizzard because it'll stay cold. Nothing spoiled. And then in the other room, I insulated the window so it wouldn't be cold in there.
I see she was thinking, you guys. Listen to Lana. She knows.
yeah, as soon as it starts snowing around here, we
All
don't
right,
keep
anything else,
we don't keep beer in the fridge out here during the winter time. It just goes on the back porch. So
Well, I'm in an apartment.
no, good chat. Any other take homes or any other
Very good.
Yeah, I'm good too. It was pretty nice tonight.
Yeah, it went pretty well. I enjoyed it. Any other questions from the side chat before I tell you guys goodbye? How about you, Corsair? You got anything good to say?
Swamp coolers don't work in my environment, Uncle Al. He's saying they only work in a dry place.
Oh, they just keep trying to make it more than 100% humidity in your house.
When I said swamp coolers work, you know, and I'm like, they don't work here because I actually tried one here and it's too humid here. It doesn't work.
And see, of course, Sarah doesn't have anything to say or he left. All right, you guys, we're going to sign off here. Anybody in the chat got anything to say? Or in the panel, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I'm good. Have a good night, everyone.
Yep.
No.
Everybody say
Bye,
good night.
everybody. Thanks for everybody coming.
I appreciate everyone that came today, and I'll be seeing you guys out there.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.